I was diagnosed with meningitis, which is essentially part of the brain which is impacted by this. The doctors had kind of written me off. He said chances of his survival is kind of remote.
What inspired you to dedicate your life to actually working for the blind?
So we went to a school for the blind. But what we saw there was life-changing. One morning I woke up in the guest house with the sound of cricket commentary, and I came out into the ground and went close to where the noise was coming from, and I saw a bunch of blind kids playing cricket with a ball that made a rattling sound. I realized that this game has the potential to go to the global level.
Correct.
And that global level provides opportunities for people to dream. I might also want to add another sentence here,
Right.
which is, as a kid growing up, I wanted to be a fast bowler.
Oh, wow.
And simply because I grew up at a time when India had no fast bowlers. Blindness is actually not a disease. It's an eye condition.
But you did a television series with Nasiruddin Shah.
Nasir Saab, he was associated with us a little earlier in one of our radio programs. He had kind of presented 7 odd profiles. So we had a connect with him. So we talked to him about this idea, and he said, it's a great idea and I would like to be part of it.
Dependability is the cornerstone of any trust. Welcome to another exciting episode of Depend on Insurance, Depend on Us. Today we bring you inspiring stories that highlight how our journeys become smoother and more fulfilling when you have dependable partners by your side. Today we have with us George Abraham, who is a distinguished social entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, and a disability rights activist. He is actually the founding chairman of the World Blind Cricket Council, and he also conceived and organized the first World Cup in the world for the blind. Actually, he's also carried the Olympic torch at Atlanta in 1996. He was nominated to the Limca Book of Records as the People of the Year in 2007. So, George, we welcome you to Canara HSBC Life.
Thank you for having me, Rishi. It'll be a pleasure.
Okay, so let's kick off. Can you just share with us a little bit about your early years and how you adapted to your own, personal challenges on visual impairment? And I think when you start a journey and when you, get the right dependable partners, that's what, I think that makes a huge amount of difference. So when you look back at the journey, it always feels that, that's the time when the right partner, the right support actually makes a lot of difference. And maybe sometimes you don't know it then, but you get to understand that in retrospect. That's what, has been my experience. And so I just felt that it will be great if you could tell us, a little bit about, your early years and how they were different and how you managed to kind of overcome your visual impairment as well.
Absolutely. I think every journey has a start, and some starts are good, some starts are treacherous, some starts are tricky. In my case, when I was born in the UK because my father was working in the UK. And at the age of 10 months, I was diagnosed with meningitis, which is essentially part of the brain which is impacted by this. And in fact, at that time, the doctors had kind of written me off. He said chances of his survival is kind of remote. But as luck would have it, and I guess it's the hand of God that I survived it. Parents were delighted, but soon they discovered that this guy had an eye problem. He couldn't see well enough. And the doctor says the retina was damaged, the optic nerves were dead, and they said that, look, the prognosis is that he's going to be blind for the rest of his life. And therefore, you might want to kind of train him and be prepared to have him go to a school for the blind and so on and so forth. But my mother, who's an optimist, she said that, he's our firstborn and we would like to give him the best. And whatever we can afford and as close to the mainstream, we would like him to experience that. So they put me in a regular school, and they just said that we will cross the bridge when they come to the challenges. And so we began in a mainstream school in Lucknow, Lamat, near girls' school, if you like it, because those days boys were there till class 4.
Right.
And then I studied in Frank Henry Public School and in Delhi, and then went to Tiny Tots in Delhi, and then went to Kendriya Vidyalaya from class 3 to 11. And, I was very lucky that my parents were extremely supportive and positive. So that was one dependable partner. Secondly, my teachers, who constantly were in communication with my parents, they were also extremely supportive, and they were willing to not just state the problem, but they were also willing to look for answers. So that was very constructive. So they would be my second pillars of strength and
Right.
dependable partners. And finally, I would like to also say that my friends who were with me in school, they were extremely good. They would read out what was written on the blackboard. They would give me their notes.
Mhm.
Some of them would do combined studies with me. So all that kind of made the journey through school quite not just routine but exciting. And I was able to participate in activities like elocution, recitation, music, athletics. Playing kabaddi was fun. Played a little cricket and all that. So I was part of the action there.
Right, right. No, I think that's a great way to kind of understand that how the pillars of dependability really help you in early career. And I'm always very keen to understand how education shapes a person, and how the early experiences make a difference. I mean, just a bit of a question there. That do you think that for kids who have a visual impairment, when they go into mainstream schooling, I'm sure there are some challenges and there are some positives around that as well, right?
Yeah.
So what's your thought around that?
In an ideal world, I think inclusive education is the best way to go forward, especially for visually impaired students. But unfortunately, every school may not be like the school I went to,
Right.
where the people were, looking forward to supporting me.
Right.
So there are issues of access.
Mhm.
For example, the textbooks, the blackboard, the teaching, the pedagogy style, all that could become barriers if the teachers are not sensitive, if the braille books or the technology is not in place. So there are very few schools, if you look at India, where inclusive education is happening for blind students. But the reason why I say it's a great place to be in is that a country has a huge diversity in various forms. It is linguistic diversity, cultural diversity, economic diversity, social diversity, and then if you bring disability and gender into the mix, so that's another element.
Too many dimensions.
Yeah, and young children growing up are citizens of tomorrow. They are the bureaucrats of tomorrow. They are the politicians of tomorrow.
Right.
They are the corporates of tomorrow. So when they kind of experience the diversity of the country in the classroom, their understanding of the diversity is very different. And when they get into the corporate world or the political world or wherever they get into,
Right.
they understand when a person with disability comes in, that it's not only the eyesight is not there, but the person has a set of brains, he's got skills, and he's got talent and ability, and he can contribute to my office or to my team. Now, so the understanding becomes very different. And in a manner of speaking, one of the main problems that people with disability face today is the mindset of people around. People don't know how to respond to, say, blindness. So in an inclusive class, every child has the opportunity of actually interacting and engaging with people who are disabled.
Right.
So when they pass out of school and college, and when they come into the workforce, I think they are, their understanding of the diversity is great,
Right.
and they are willing to give everybody a chance and an opportunity.
Right. Right. No, that's an excellent observation. I think normally there are always some of those inflection points in life, I mean, where those key moments or experiences,
Yeah.
Where you find that, that is a moment of truth, and that kind of changes, the trajectory. I mean, I was reading through your profile, and I got to understand that you're actually from St. Stephen's, and you got a education in mathematics, right?
Right.
Right. We would have, recruited you immediately if you had applied, because we have, we have a whole actuarial team that does exactly that, right? But I think, and seeing that, I was kind of reminded, of inflection point where actually, the slope of the curve is the highest, and that's the point at which something changes in life, the trajectory changes. I mean, it's the actual mathematical definition, right, of how things change. So I just wanted to check with you that what was your inflection point, what was that particular point in your life when you felt that epiphany that this is how trajectory is going to change in life.
When I would attribute the foundations and the basic development in my school, because that's where I got the maximum opportunities, and I also had the opportunity to excel. I was a good debater. I was a good athlete. I've represented the school and the state in Kendriya Vidyalaya in 100 meters and long jump and so on. So the opportunities were there for me, and I was with my parents then. St. Stephen's, to my mind, gave me the branding.
Okay.
He's a Stephanian.
Right.
And it was academically it was average, but I think what was great about St. Stephen's was the kind of network and friendships that were built, and what you learn from your peers. Because, like you said, that Stephen's is a great place to be in, and that's because of the kind of students who come there. It's normally the cream of the country,
right?
And you learn a lot from them. Your interests, your skills, your talents. You suddenly realize what the standards should be. Whatever space that you want to get into, Stevens in the 1970s, gave you an opportunity to hone your skills, make your networks, and also enjoy academics, enjoy literature, enjoy national life, because being in the capital,
right,
you do participate in a lot of things that happens in the city, and a lot of things that happen in the country happens in the capital.
Right.
So you're exposed. The exposure is phenomenal. So as a visually impaired person, I think St. Stephen's did a great deal as far as my brand is concerned, the brand George Abraham, in a manner of speaking. And it also made me very aspirational and ambitious.
Wow. Okay, what inspired you to dedicate your life to actually working for the blind? Because I think you were in advertising, and one of the premier advertising agencies, and you were pursuing a creative career, right? And then you felt that you want to dedicate your life, follow a passion, move differently. So how has that unique perspective, shaped your journey?
Well, it's not as romantic as you put it, but advertising was an exciting innings.
Right.
I got in there in 1982 with ASP, and then Ogilvy, Benson and Mather. I was in client servicing, and when I kind of had spent 8 to 9 years in the industry, I suddenly realized that with my eye condition, remember, I was in the industry when technology was not there. Today I use a lot of technology to deal with challenges and issues of life. Those days I had to depend on human support. Reading was a major challenge, and when you are in the client servicing space, there are a lot of reports, a lot of proposals, a lot of documents, a lot of briefs that you have to read.
Right.
And then as a young person in a company which is very profit driven, it's very difficult to get somebody dedicated who would sit with you and kind of support you.
Right.
And at that age, at that stage in my life, I was also a little hesitant to kind of put on the table my weaknesses.
Right.
It's I think natural for a young person who's growing up to try and be as normal as anybody else. And then if you suddenly you're the only person there, and you say, look, I can't see what's written on the board, I can't see what's written on the slide, or I can't read this document. I need somebody to read it out to me. There might be people willing to read it, but my mindset at that point of time was, I'm okay, I'm doing well, and I should continue. So I started feeling the pinch and the struggles of being a visually impaired person in a very competitive, very fast-moving advertising industry in Mumbai, and later on in Delhi as well. And I just felt that this was probably not a long-term prospect where I would stay in the industry for too long, because room at the top is limited. There's a lot of competition at the base level and the middle level. And I just felt that I may not really progress beyond a point. So I said that I need to do something which gives me full latitude and space. At the same time, I would be doing something that's useful and meaningful.
Right.
And it was around that time that my wife told me that, look, we were expecting our first baby, and she said, I want to learn Braille.
Right.
So we went to a school for the blind, and what we saw there, of course, we didn't end up learning Braille, but what we saw there was life changing. The quality of education, the quality of resources, the faculty, and the seriousness, all that was kind of compromised. And I just felt that, people like me were struggling there. And I was lucky to have had the opportunities that my parents gave me.
Right.
So I told my wife that, okay, Braille or no Braille, let's take a call now. Let's do something with people like me. So that's what prompted me to, there was a personal scenario, which was, I was not finding it very easy and didn't see a future in advertising.
Right.
At the same time, I saw a challenge and a need in the space of life with blindness. And that was a calling. And then I started traveling around the country, meeting people from the government, people from NGOs, people who are blind doing various interesting things. And I saw these kids playing cricket for the blind in Dehradun. And that's where I said, boss, this is what I need to do.
Right.
So that's where it
how
started.
the network spawned, right?
Yes, indeed.
And that's how your passion, kind of started to take roots and connect and start to build up, right?
Yep. So I must tell you why I found this cricket for the blind meaningful.
Right.
Because I was staying in the guest house at the National Institute of the Visually Handicapped in Dehradun. I'd gone there basically to understand what's the kind of work that is done in this apex body in the country, which works with the blind. So one morning I woke up in the guest house with the sound of cricket commentary, and I came out into the ground and went close to where the noise was coming from, and I saw a bunch of blind kids playing cricket with a ball that made a rattling sound.
And this was the 80s, right?
This was 88 maybe.
Yeah, okay.
And the umpire was the physical training instructor of the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, what's this all about? So he said, these kids enjoy this game of cricket. And then it was also very evident that there was a lot of skill.
Right.
And being an athlete myself and being a sports lover myself, I realized the value that sport adds to the personality development of a person. You develop skills, you develop attitudes, you develop really social skills, discipline, and so on and so forth. Secondly, I just felt with the kind of following the game of cricket has in India.
Right.
Anywhere you go to in Delhi or Bombay or Chennai, and people are playing, some people are playing cricket on the roadside, there's a crowd standing around and watching.
That's right. Cricket is the first religion. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful way of projecting a positive image of blind people, because on the playing field you have a very positive picture. People are running, people are striking, people are shouting, people are laughing, people are getting angry. All kinds of emotions are expressed, and it's not the dark glasses and white cane image that traditionally we have.
It's actually the very opposite, right?
Absolutely. And then the third thing I realized was this game has the potential to go to the global level.
Correct.
And that global level provides opportunities for people to dream, because every guy who plays cricket wants to play for India someday or the other.
Right.
And then playing the game, you traveled first of all to different parts of India itself. That's educative. Not only is it giving you an opportunity to play in another city, but you also get to know about the city. You have the experience of travel. You have the experience of meeting other people. So that's wonderful. And then when you get into the international stage, the same thing happens at a global level.
Right.
So I thought it was a great thing to get people dreaming about a future, getting aspirational, getting involved with social groups, and so on. So I just thought it was a powerful tool and medium to actually socially integrate blind people into the society and also make them competitive and aspirational. So, and I was thinking, why was this not seen, say, 20 years earlier?
Right. Yeah, no, I think it was the right time, because nobody had imagined that. I think it was a very pioneering thought, and you then kind of created the first World Cup for the blind. I think that's what took a large part of your
and you might
in the 90s.
Yeah, I might also want to add another sentence here,
right?
Which is, as a kid growing up, I wanted to be a fast bowler.
Oh wow!
And simply because I grew up at a time when India had no fast bowlers, no Kapil Dev, no Ghavri, no Madan Lal or Srinath or Bumrah. India is just take the shine of the ball, and then spinners would come on.
Right, right.
And we would be terrorized by fast bowlers from the West Indies and
Oh
Australia.
yes, oh yes. 1983, Malcolm Marshall.
Yes, indeed. And before that, Dennis Lilly, Andy Roberts, and all of them.
Right,
And, Dennis Lilly had a philosophy which, when I played little cricket,
right.
my dream also was either send the batsman to the pavilion or to the hospital. Either way, you get him off the ground.
Right, right.
Yeah. So that was a passion. But as I grew older, in school itself, I realized that cricket was not a future for me.
Right.
And that passion had to be kind of hushed up. And when I saw these kids playing cricket in Dehradun, I think that passion re-emerged.
Wow.
So the World Cup, if you ask me, is an expression of a fast bowler who wasn't.
Right, right. Oh, that's an amazing way to put it. But yeah, I can fully imagine, the 80s and how, we used to be terrorized. I remember, the test match in 83 at the Green Park in Kanpur, when Malcolm Marshall in the twilight coming in and, the entire Indian team kind of, feels terrorized and all of that. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, of course, fast bowlers have their own, kind of, there's an aura in the game, and that's something which I think is something which is evolving even today. As you rightly said, we have a huge set of
Fast bowlers, yeah.
fast bowlers, and some of them we have now Bumrah, who's coming up and is perhaps the best bowler in the world. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
right. Nazariya, that's what you picked up after, cricket you had done and, kind of handed over the reins, to the rest of the people to follow up. But you did a television series with Nasiruddin Shah that highlighted success stories of visually impaired individuals. And where did that idea come from? I mean, how did that kind of evolve that, let's start to talk about success stories. Let's maybe, that was the beginning of your podcast as well, right?
Yeah. So the idea of working on a different level outside cricket was emerged from, the experience I had. I traveled across the country organizing cricket, in fact, across the world.
Right.
And I also, alongside in the late 90s and early 2000s, did a series of workshops in communication skills
Wow.
with young blind people. And what I realized was the real problem was not with the blindness, it was the mindset.
Right.
People did not know how to respond to blindness. And that's why I just felt it was important to disseminate information. And when we disseminated information, we started a project called Eyeway, Eyeway. And we were disseminating information, and then people started calling us up with their queries and challenges. So we started connecting them with local NGOs. And because I was traveling around and doing all this cricket in collaboration with a lot of NGOs across the country, I had direct connect with NGOs. So each time somebody called up from a particular region, I would just call up that NGO whom I knew and say that, okay, so-and-so is here and I'm recommending him to you. He needs some education, or he needs some computer training, or he needs some vocational training, or whatever. So that referrals started happening. And I also started, we also started working on, advocacy. So while we were going along, we did radio programs, over 300 radio programs called Eyeway Ye Hai Roshni Ka Karwa. Now, while all this was happening, television was always there at the back of my mind.
Right.
And there was this global bid that was put out where they said there were three spaces in which people could apply with ideas. One was in the ICT space, the other one was in the area of cataract surgery, and then there was a third area. So we applied, we thought it was a great opportunity to apply for a television serial.
Oh, wow.
So that we could create some kind of awareness in the country. And that would also feed into the helpline that we had created.
Right.
So that people who need challenges or who have problems, they could call in. So that was the beginning. And this bid was for about 75 lakhs. And we happened to be one of the 13 out of 600 odd agencies from across the world who had applied for it. We were one of the 13 who got selected. And alongside a couple of other companies who also added to the kitty, we did Nazariya. And as the name suggests, we are asking the question, is the problem with the nazar, which is eyesight, or is it with the nazariya, which is the mindset?
Right.
And so the idea was not really to project success stories. The idea was to actually tell the audience that being blind, you still have possibilities and potential in life. Every person is potentially part of the human resources of the country. We need to invest in them, and there are possibilities. There are huge possibilities of different kinds of professional opportunity. There are travel company owners. There are people in the corporate world. There are people selling insurance policies. There are people who are financial consultants.
Right.
There are people who are teachers, who are into massage. There are all kinds of professions that people are doing, who are blind, who are doing. So we just wanted to share that possibilities and potential, plus also show the different inputs that are required to actually help blind people evolve to their potential. So
Right.
parenting is critical, education is critical, extracurricular activity is critical, sporting activities is critical, music is critical, laws have to be supporting, aligned. Then women have to be looked at, public sector, private sector, all that has to be looked at. Universal design, the ecosystem needs to be made accessible and inclusive. So all these messaging also happened at the same time. And Nasir Saab, he was associated with us a little earlier in one of our radio programs. He had kind of presented 7 odd profiles. So we had a connect with him. So we talked to him about this idea, and he said, it's a great idea and I would like to be part of it.
Wow.
So that's how Nasir Saab was involved, and so was Harsh Chaya, who's also a television actor. He was the anchor while every episode was introduced and concluded by Nasruddin Shah.
Right. So I think it was at the end of the day, I think what was happening, I guess, was that a lot of dependable, kind of areas which were coming up, and that was actually, and you were fighting for, in effect, creating independence, right? To creating the essence of making creating accessibility in the ecosystem, so that people who are visually impaired find themselves be completely independent of doing the things that any normal person would want to do, right? So that's what I thought was the whole work that was going on. That's the way I interpret it.
Yeah, that's an interesting play of words. We're all striving for independence, but you need dependable support,
right,
to actually become independent.
Correct.
Whether it's in the space of education, can you independently navigate through education? You need dependable infrastructure and ecosystems there to support you, dependable people around to support you, like I had when I was growing up.
Right.
So yes, you don't grow up in isolation. You don't become independent in isolation.
Right.
Then there's dependable infrastructure, dependable partners, dependable tools that you use on a day-to-day basis. I think this is required for all human beings, and I think the challenge really is that when it comes to visually impaired people, many of the creators of this dependable systems don't really envisage or have not really seen that blind people are also potentially part of this end user set,
Right.
universe. And that's why sometimes, more often than not, you find inaccessible barriers posed.
Right. No, I think as part of the financial services industry, it's very important, and I think there's a very crying need for to be very conscious of the fact that we need to make our products and services very accessible to everyone, and that I think is quite important for everybody in our industry to kind of understand as well, so that we can reach out with our services to the maximum number of people. And actually speaking, for everyone, there should be a solution which works.
Yeah, I just like to make one point over here, Rishi, which is that there is a perception that blindness is a disease. Blindness is actually not a disease. It's an eye condition.
Right.
It's like you've lost your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Say you got in an accident, you've lost your wrist.
Right.
You continue doing your things, right?
Correct.
It's not going to lead to, say, diabetes, or it's not going to lead to typhoid, or it's not going to lead to liver problems.
Right.
Similarly, eyesight is not going to lead to problems which will call for, say, medical expenditure, health expenditure, or your life becomes extra vulnerable because the eyesight is a condition. Loss of eyesight is a condition that cannot be treated. So, in fact, there's no investment also involved when, on the eyes, because, okay, he's blind. There's no treatment available.
Right.
So that is one. Number two is a lot of people, whether it's banking or insurance, they also see a risk involved in taking insurance policy with somebody who's blind. As I was telling somebody earlier this afternoon, uh, this blind people, when I'm blind, I would be extra careful when I'm
Right.
moving around to make sure that I don't get into an accident or I don't bump into people, or I take extra precautions.
Right.
Likewise, when I deal with my money in the bank, bankers very often feel that I'm not capable of handling my money. Somebody will cheat me. But the fact of the matter is, I would be extra cautious.
Right.
So I think it's important that your audience, for instance, from the financial sector, realize that blindness is a condition,
Right.
and people who are blind know that there are limitations, and therefore they compensate with precautions which will make sure that they are safe.
Right, right. No, I think that's a very valuable lesson, and I think as the awareness increases, and as people, including whether it's insurance or banking, get to be much more part of this ecosystem, which I think you are, kind of actively working for, then I think this will change. I think this will, actually bring in many more opportunities for us to be able to kind of design as well as create situations which are actually positive, and which are therefore more inclusive and more accessible for everyone, including visually impaired people. So I think that's actually the target and the lesson for us to kind of make that happen.
Wonderful.
We would do that, right? So I think coming back, I think how much role does accessibility play in creating these equal opportunities in employment and social participation, and what is the practical advice that you would kind of give to help families work with, if they have visually impaired members, how would they thrive in such situations?
I think this accessibility is the single most important factor which either breaks or makes a person with disability. Now, parents, for example, when their child is diagnosed with blindness, yes, there's to a certain extent they do medical shopping to see and explore all possibilities and avenues of maybe restoring sight. But when once the medical professionals have said that there is no surgery, no surgical solution or medical solution available, then I think it's important for the parents to start looking at how will this child grow into becoming an independent, talented, capable citizen of the country who will contribute to the economy. And that calls for education, that calls for skill development, that calls for encouraging various skills and talents that the child has. And as I said earlier, a blind person can, today there are blind people who are successfully working as civil servants in India. So if that is possible, I think anything is possible by for blind people, including the medical space. Maybe not as surgeons, but as psychiatrists, for example. There is a psychiatrist who works in one of the hospitals in Assam who's totally blind. There are physicians who are totally blind who are working in different places in the country. Now these people happen to. There is a big resistance, of course, for getting into the medical space.
Right.
But there are people who have managed to go through and who are working effectively. So I think the parents need to focus on empowerment. Parents must have expectations of their children, because I think the power of expectation is huge. My mother and my father, they had huge expectations of me, and that rubbed off in the form of aspirations and ambitions within me.
Right.
And then of course the ecosystem has to be accessible. The reading material has to be made available in accessible formats. When I was growing up, the only option was for people to read out to me or to provide books in braille to me, which was very limited. Today there's a lot of technology that's available, and that has opened up a whole lot of avenues for blind people. So every parent should not really look that they have been cheated because their child has become blind. On the other hand, it's an opportunity to invest and develop a champion.
Right. No, I think that's a powerful thought, and I would just take away from that actually we're looking at therefore creating more and more dependable partnerships, whether it's with technology. I think with AI coming in, I'm sure there are many more avenues remote work, I guess that is one solution to, when you're saying, even the medical field or any specialized field, which is definitely possible. And I think the sky is the limit actually for
Absolutely, absolutely.
opportunities. I think you just need to have the right partnerships and the right, backup to be able to kind of create, the whole world.
No, I think the right information is very critical also
That's right.
at the right time.
At the right time. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think that's what finally constitutes what you call accessibility or the ecosystem,
That's
which will enable visually impaired people to actually aspire for the biggest dreams that they have.
Sure.
I think that's where I think we also kind of come in and talk about the fact that we are always there as the kind of silent partner, whether it's through insurance or whether it's through any work that we do to create the financial support and the dependability that actually I think is very important. I think for parents also it's very important to understand that it's important to save and to invest for the future, and that actually, especially for a special needs child, given the level of aspiration is higher, I'm sure the level of preparation would be, as you rightly said, we have to over prepare, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So, one last question, George. Looking ahead, what are some of your own future goals and aspirations? And, what do you think? What do you see the role of dependable partners, which you've had so early in life, and in achieving some of your future goals and aspirations?
Well, that's an interesting question you are asking a 66-year-old person.
Well,
I am actually looking at starting on my next innings,
right.
Which is probably in the mainstream. I'm looking at being an inspirational speaker, one.
Wow.
Two, I'm looking at becoming a trainer when it comes to areas of communication and public speaking and storytelling. I'm also looking at, so that could also be, part of coaching and mentoring young people. I also would like to write a book, sharing my experiences and my journeys, because I think it would be useful for a lot of people. And I would like to have my own. I have a podcast which I do which is called Eyeway Conversations with my organization, Score Foundation.
Right.
But I would like to also start my own personal podcast, and hopefully it would be something which would be a runaway success.
I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's, I'm sure that with your vision and with your, life experiences, that is definitely going to be very exciting. So I think let's move to some of the rapid fire questions. We have a short section which we call, the rapid fire rounds.
My God, that's scary.
And no, I think it's more humorous and exciting. So
Okay,
go. Maybe I'll if you're okay, I'll just fire off. Right?
Where will the gun come from?
No, it'll come from me. Okay. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
So I was looking at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India. Two reasons. One is I think he's largely responsible for uniting India after independence. There were a lot of parts of India which were kind of threatening to fragment.
Right.
He brought them all together. And also, he and I share a birthday.
Wow.
31st October.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Describe your perfect day in 3 words.
Enjoying with family.
Okay.
3 words.
That's the most perfect day. That's right.
Yeah.
That's something which I feel exactly the same.
Right.
What's a hobby or interest that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Being a blind person, my hobby is reading. I enjoy reading. I'm a passionate reader.
Wow.
And the audience might wonder, this guy is blind. How is he going to read so passionately? So I use platforms like Audible, platforms like Storytel, platforms like Kindle, and there are apps like VoiceStream and so on, which connects with, helps me read e-text, EPUB text, PDFs, and so on as well. So
do you set a target like 50 books this year or this month?
No, I don't target that way. But every time I'm in the car,
okay,
I am reading.
Okay,
I have my headphones and I read on my phone.
Right.
So I read the crime thrillers, I read fiction, I read romantic stories, I read biographies,
Wow, that's a wide range. Yeah. Great. Okay, if you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Playing the guitar.
Oh.
I'd like to play the guitar and sing.
Right. Yeah, I thought you were talking about music early on in your career, right?
Yeah, actually,
More singing than guitaring.
No, one of my three aspirations as a kid growing up was, one was, as I mentioned, being a fast bowler like Dennis Lilly.
Right.
The second one was to be a singer like Kishore Kumar.
Okay.
But most of my singing has been done in the bathroom. But I say this wherever I get an opportunity to speak. Invariably, at the end of the talk, the students or the audience, some of them will put up their hands and sing a song. So then I sing a song. But I am also kind of at this age looking at formally learning the guitar.
Right.
So that that's a good skill to have.
Wow. Okay. In one word, what does dependability mean to you?
I thought about this and my answer is God. That's the dependable factor in my life.
And what's finally your top tip for financial security? Invest.
I invest in, of course, I've also invested in insurance, but I also invest in mutual funds and so on.
Right.
Because this is something where I am not a government servant, neither do I work with a corporate.
Right.
So my future security or dependence on my financial dependence is on my investments in mutual funds and so on.
Right. No, I think that's very important that we all put aside and give highest priority to financial security, because that's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that we have come to the end of a very insightful discussion. George, I think your remarkable story demonstrates how challenging conventional thinking and removing systemic barriers can really transform lives and create social change. So you've been a real agent for social change, and finally you've been a real inspiration for us. With that, we have come to the end of a very insightful discussion. George's remarkable story demonstrates how challenging conventional thinking and removing systemic barriers can transform lives and create lasting social change. So that makes George Abraham an inspiration for us all. And George, thanks for joining us. We now want to present to you a souvenir to honor your achievements and to express our gratitude for being with us.
Before you do that, I just want to personally thank you and thank the company for having me here on this podcast. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. And I sincerely hope that some of the points that we discussed on this show is heard by the powers that be in the corporate world that manage and the government that manage the financial services of this country, so that blind citizens of this country also have a very dignified and dependable presence in the financial space.
So George, this is our kind of small way of saying thank you to you. So what I'm giving you is actually a big picture, right?
Okay. Oh, it's right here.
It's right here. Yeah. It's a bit heavy. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I must, before I say it's a lovely souvenir and thank you for it, I need to know what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe you could explain.
Right. So it is actually a throwback picture. I think it's a caricature sketch of you, and it has the World Cup, the World Cup for the blind, I think, which is right in front of you. So it's a nice caricature of you with the World Cup. So it's a nice souvenir to keep. And what it says on top is Canara HSBC Life Insurance celebrates George Abraham for being a dependable promise ka partner.
Thank you. That sounds lovely.
So George, I would now request you to join me, and we will take you to our wall of dependability to sign our planter.
Canara HSBC Life Insurance. Promises ka partner.